All right, I'm Mike Moranto for DaemenWildcats.com, and I'm joined again today by one of our alums, and actually my phone's going off, so I'm going to put that on silent. Mike Wild, a multi-sport athlete here at Daemen, about a decade ago, a double graduate from Daemen. Mike, it's going to be good to catch up with you here today. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me on. It's fun to catch up and talk about old times and see you again, Mike. So thanks for having me.
So, I could go down the list here. I mean, you are like Mr. Daemen, Mike Wild, because aside from being the director of athletics, if there was something to do within the division of athletics here at Daemen, you've pretty much done it. Competed in 3 different sports: soccer, cross country, track and field. You went on to be a graduate assistant within our department. You went on to be an athletic trainer within our department. Let's start with your playing career. You started out playing soccer. Like I said, you moved on to cross country and track and field. Tell me about being a 3-sport athlete here.
Yeah, some of it, I guess back in the day, it was more of a necessity than anything else. And I'm one, I like to be involved in probably way too many things, as you know, Mike, but I don't like to sit around. And so, yeah, I came to Daemen actually originally for schooling, kind of then looked into playing sports, walked on to soccer. And my first year, I like pushing myself fitness-wise as much as I can, or at least I did. And so turned out like during soccer practice when we had to do team long runs, I was pretty good at it. And the assistant coach kind of talked about, hey, maybe your 5th year, you should look at cross country. But my sophomore year, there's only 4 guys in the cross country team and you need 5 to score. So kind of bumped that up and started talking to them. And so on my days that I didn't have soccer, that was back in the NEI days where we could do more hours of sports per day and multiple competitions a day. And so I was doing cross country workouts during my off days, and then that turned into competing on my off weekends. And my senior year was actually combining the both some days where we'd do a cross country race in the morning and try to fuel up with nutrition, and then come and play a soccer game in the afternoon. And really, I enjoyed the best of both worlds with those, just because the team aspect of sport, which is always a blast to see what a group of individuals can do. And then the cross country was a great group of guys that we had, and the opportunity to go out and push yourself individually and then add that together to a team. And so kind of when I got sick of the drama sometimes with the team sport, you went and did the individual. When you got sick of pushing that, you could go switch back and forth. So it created a good balance. And then, just my 5th year, focused on running and was able to post better times and excel in that area. And then, my 5th year as well, they also added the track and field. I remember Don Severi, it was 3 days after my cross-country season ended, so my collegiate career was over. I was ready to just be done after doing everything. And then 3 days later, he's like, well, we just added track and field, and you're on the team, so deal with that. So track wasn't my best experience. I've never done it, but it was good to be on the first year of the program. It was back in spring of 2011 now, so now it's been cool to see where the track programs went, and then even be the athletic trainer and travel around with them for 3 years there, and you see that program grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you intertwined and explained that really well, because I don't know if people understand how, you're running cross country and playing soccer at the same time. It's the same season. So I think we've seen different athletes, utilize that 5th year once they've played 4 sports or 4 years of one sport, and then utilize that 5th year going to a different sport and for one season. That's not what you did. You were excuse me, a part of the soccer team for 4 years and the cross country team for 3. So that in and of itself is an accomplishment.
Yeah. Oh, it was, if I look back at it now and think about doing that, it's like, oh, I did that once. But yeah, really, I think, like I said, it was kind of out of necessity. We didn't have a lot of personnel in cross country. And for me, mentally, it was a good push some days just to see how far can you go and can you run, a full 5-mile or 8K race and, be able to log 70 minutes in a game in the same day. And it just became a weird, nutty challenge, which probably isn't good, but it was fun at the time, and it helped out both teams. So
yeah, and I think it also speaks to your mindset. I think you're the type of guy that you were willing to do anything for the betterment of Daemen College, the Department of Athletics, et cetera, to the point where, hey, we need a guy in cross country, I'll go run. You need a guy on the track and field team that's brand new, okay, I'll do it. And I think that then carried over then when you became a graduate assistant within our department, and you're only one grad assistant in our whole department at that time. We've since had the ability to expand and have a bunch of them, but you were getting a lot of the grunt work, a lot of the late nights, and a lot of the weekends and early mornings, and just kind of doing everything under the sun here in our department. Tell me about that experience.
Yeah, it was great for me. Again, some of that background, I grew up on a small farm where you just, something needs done, you figure out how to do it and get it done. But yeah, you're right. You were here in those early days. I know Dave Skolin and I used to joke when we started adding staff that we split up our positions and added like 4 more people to those positions, because in the early days you didn't have the personnel, you didn't have a lot of resources, and you just figured out a way to do it. So yeah, I had a little bit as a grad assistant. I was blessed for that, and Jeff Sage was really influential on kind of getting that opportunity, which was great for me. I was able to get grad school paid for, but also the opportunity to get really a lot of collegiate athletic administration experience. So I did everything from booking hotels and helping out with some of the travel stuff for teams, to planning and organize game management, which I think you've taken over now. And that's awesome that you took over that even in my end, because that's a big bear, to managing work study staff, athletic facilities. And so we were talking earlier about a lot of fun stories of sitting there on a weekend laying underneath the bleachers trying to get the motor to work because it just wasn't going, and you got a game and you got to get the bleachers moved. And trying to think of even what else there was, and then hosting of different events and trying to schedule those with people, and little kid basketballs on the weekend. It was a little bit of everything, but at the same time it was a great experience. And even as I kind of propelled into my career and working in collegiate athletics, it was always interesting where people are like, well, how do we do this? Or how do I run the score clock? And I'm like, oh, I know how to do that. And they're like, how do you know? I was like, well, long story. We had to figure that one out way back in the day. So, and so it was really a great experience for me, and got your feet wet in a lot of different areas. And that was awesome for me. It was a lot of work. Didn't sleep much in those days. And yeah, you shoved your study time in when you could, and but that was kind of a great opportunity, and I was very blessed with that.
Absolutely. And you mentioned, I think it's working, you're essentially an operational employee, and I think that's a great way to be exposed to college athletics, because you said you get excuse me, to get your hands dirty in a lot of different ways and see how a lot of the department works. You mentioned as well, you're doing all that stuff while you're studying. You graduated 2011 with a degree in healthcare studies, right?
Healthcare studies, exercise science.
Yep. And then 2012, you add the master's in athletic training, and you brought up Jeff Sage, and Jeff is for anybody that doesn't know, Jeff is our assistant athletic director for sports medicine and performance. He's been the head athletic trainer here at Daemen for going on 25 years. Jeff is so well regarded, Mike, you know this, across our state and our region, in that athletic training community. Tell me what it's like, or what it was like, going from student to then colleague of Jeff's. As you get after the GA thing, you get hired as an assistant athletic trainer here at Daemen, and just having him as a mentor.
Yeah, that was, I think the best way I can describe that is there's a quote or saying that as you climb your career ladder, the bottom rungs are definitely the strongest, and Jeff is that very bottom rung for me. And I was hugely blessed to be able to go to Daemen. Started out as actually a work study student for him, and just kind of doing whatever he needed. And then that kind of propelled me into the grad assistant position, where I was still, working with them a little bit, and then also doing clinicals while I was a student. Did one with men's basketball, you guys there, and then transitioned to the colleague side. So it's kind of this slow transition from student to colleague to mentor the whole way, and then working at as an assistant athletic trainer for 3 years. It really, the best way to describe Jeff is if you say any Chuck Norris joke about him, it's probably true. Just because he's a guy that can do it all and do it all really well. And so to have that level of professionalism, expertise, leadership, and he's incredibly humble and willing to share, and but at the same time he pulls it out of you too. And so it was a huge blessing just to have that level of leadership, that level of professionalism, and learn how to kind of really aspire to be closer to that and continue to grow and gain skills. And it's really even, and ask good questions that even today when I'm working at places, it's like, oh, what's the questions Jeff would ask to be 2 steps ahead of everybody else and think about. And so it's really, how to be proactive and plan for the worst, but really hope for the best. And Jeff does that well. And I know Tracy did a little shout out to him in the last Paw Print News, I think it was, and she kind of tipped the surface a little bit of how good Jeff is. But he's the Chuck Norris of Daemen athletics in some ways, and athletic training. I was hugely blessed and influenced, and take a lot of those principles that he kind of instilled on me, and as the administratively, and I was also blessed to work with Karen there too. To a lot of my clinical decision making now, actually, a lot of that came from Karen and how she thinks about process. So I was blessed to work with 2 great individuals there, and grow as a young professional.
Now tell me about, so you do the 3 years here as an assistant athletic trainer. You make the decision to move on. It was kind of like, for those of us that work with you, Mike, it was kind of like sending your child off out into the world, right? It's like we were pushing, we weren't pushing you, but it was sad to see you go, because you had, as we've covered here, had done so many things, and just really became part of the fabric of our department. Tell me about the decision to move on, and what you've been doing since leaving Daemen here.
Yeah, that was a hard decision. It was I'd at that point been at Daemen 9 years, if you put together 6 years of schooling and 3 years of working there, and had to overcome things from that transition that we talked about earlier to, a lot of my friends, or then my, student athletes, and try to transitioned from a friendship to a professional relationship, and as well as, working with, colleagues, other coaches that I was, the grad assistant and still a student, to now working together and kind of work through all that. And really, I loved my time at Daemen. My challenge was, for me, I've been there 9 years, and for me to really grow and continue to improve, excel, I needed a new opportunity, I thought, at that point. In addition, I was, doing some teaching at Daemen, teaching gross anatomy, as well as an athletic training graduate program course, and enjoyed teaching, but knew I needed to, if I wanted to get more into that, I needed to change settings to kind of get more experience and grow in that area, as well as just kind of push myself in different areas as far as clinically. Again, so I loved it, but just, it was really, for me, I thought just the time that I needed to grow and needed to change things up. So from there, took a position out in Twin Cities, Minnesota, with Bethel University, Division III school, and worked there as it was a split position. Did both teaching as well as athletic training for cross country, track and field, and men's hockey. Got a lot of hockey experience there, and which was fun. But then I also got to balance it with this intense team sport on one side with men's hockey, and then I had my cross country, which if you look at my career, for some reason I've always fallen into the cross country, track and field, even though I'm a big guy and ran it there, as we've discussed already. But clinically, it kind of, wherever I've worked, it's like, oh, well, you have some experience with the runners, you go take care of them. And kind of propelled me to where I've enjoyed that side and became good with overuse injuries. And so worked with the program there at Bethel, which was a blast. Cross-country program was, growing and developing. The track program was pretty well established. The coach was Andrew Rock, who was went to Division III school, but had an Olympic gold medal with the 4x4 relay team out in Athens, and in 2002. And his wife is the Wayne Gretzky of Division III distance running. Still has times that are 30 seconds faster than anybody else all time in Division III history. And so to work with that couple and their other coach, Joe, of just with teams, we had great 4x4 teams, went to nationals with them. And so to develop that relationship and grow, and also got into clinically learning a lot of joint mobs and using that effectively. And that's played an integral part. And so kind of got more teaching experience, more clinical experience. Was there for 2 years and was on a 2-year contract, and that was ending. They offered me an additional 2, but after that, they're making transitions in their program. And so actually took a position at SUNY Cortland, and I was the track and field cross country guy. That was my only main thing. Filled in for other sports, and I got the pleasure to work with Bob O'Malley there. Was kind of been in Buffalo for a number of years, and was at Will South with Mark Coppola. Took care of him back in the day, and so had that great opportunity for a year, and between that transition, I also got the opportunity to go up to Lake Placid and volunteered at the Olympic Training Center with the USOC, and did a 2-week rotation there, and really took I would say a lot of the skills that I'd pulled together from Daemen, from Bethel, and was able just to work on Olympic hopefuls, current Olympic athletes, and national team members, and developmental team members, just to kind of hang out for 2 weeks, work, help them out, do some clinical work, and develop relationships. So still, I'm on the list for USA Bobsled now to do international travel or work with their developmental teams. It's a volunteer, but it's still fun. Get those emails sometime and see if you can fit them into your schedule, which hasn't worked out yet with still working in the profession, but that was a great opportunity to kind of bring everything together. And so then I worked at Cortland for a year, and then actually transitioned back to Minneapolis now, where got married last summer, and now just working in a position for high schools, doing some industrial work, and then taking care of some high school athletes, is trying to balance the family life as well as clinical work life. Kind of a quick summary. I've been all over them. It wasn't planned, but here we are.
I understand, and nobody knows. You're preaching to the choir about balance in the family life. So I know where you're coming from. Again, I thank you, Mike, for taking the time to do this today. I think you've given some good insight into what it was like to be an athlete here back about a decade ago, before we made the transition to NCAA Division II. And we thank you for everything that you've done for our department over that 9-year stretch, and obviously today, even though you're out of state, continue to be a great ambassador for Daemen College as a whole, and as well as our athletic department. So thanks for joining me today, Mike. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's good to catch up, and go Wildcats.
Got it, bud.